One of the main hardships of life is figuring out the real from the fake, the good deeds from the bad intentions. It's not an easy puzzle to solve, as these people tend to be cheeky chameleons, camouflaging to fit in with the good. After all, we all live on the same planet. These people will live amongst you and me. It's no mistake that we often end up learning the hard way. Whether it be finding out your companion cheating on you, or your friend suddenly turning on you, it induces one of the worst feelings you can ever experience in life. Knowing that a person that you shared so many memories and good times with, thinking you knew them, only for them to turn out to be a piece of shit. It sucks, and one of the worst ways you can experience this is with your role model. Someone who inspired you. Someone who you often supported with cold, hard cash. Someone who you looked up to, and all of that getting flushed down the toilet as their depravity was exposed, one by one, to the public eye. This problem can be applied to so many scandals over the past 20 years, it's actually insane. The amount of degeneracy in the entertainment industry is overwhelming. And this doesn't just apply to Hollywood, oh no. Our story comes from somewhere a bit closer to home. In recent times, few people on the site YouTube.com have grown to be as revered upon as Cosmodore, a 21-year-old cheeto puff from Germany who made a career off reviewing/critiquing animation and was very well respected by his peers. That is until around July of 2020, when two massive allegations were put out that essentially wiped out his existence. A tale of man meeting minor, abuse, and straight up insanity. The true story of Darth Cheeto the Pedo is not something he would tell you outright. In fact, he would have you believe that he is mentally capable of handling his platform. Complete bollocks. Cosmodore's actions as of late are fueled by a unique kind of desperation, only found amongst the bottom of the barrel. Desperation to get back what was ripped from his hands by the people who made him. A willingness to sacrifice his left kidney to get even a sliver of the platform he once had. And when he doesn't get what he wants, he tries again and again, slightly tweaking his articulation each time, and each time he swims deeper into the Mariana Trench of his own delusion. He is the very personification of a desperate degenerate, and today we will be going through each and every layer of this man's insanity, documenting his descent, and going into every reason why, in his current state, his one motivation to keep trying is completely false and can only be buried within the mind of a frantic maniac. Now, to be honest, I never sat through a single Cosmodore video when he was at its prime, but I was definitely aware of his existence. It was hard not to as an 11-year-old casually watching YouTubers in the art community, among the likes of LSMark, Mr. Enter and PieGuy Rules. His videos would always appear on my recommended, but I cannot remember for the life of me watching any one of them. Maybe that's just a stroke of luck, or I just had a spidey sense for degenerates. Either way, it makes this video a bit easier to make. Cosmodore was an animation reviewer who relied heavily on detailed analysis, critique, and minimal but effective editing to make his videos pop. His content was characterized by his extensive research and care into the topic he was discussing, and his ability to talk about works that had largely been forgotten to time, ergo his "Oh yeah, blank was a thing" series. This lineup would pay off, big time, with 16 of his videos surpassing 1 million views. At his peak, he was on his way to pass the 300k mark. LSMark is one of Cosmodore's close mutuals, along with Saberspock, whom he edited for. Both of these channels would grow up to be reviewing Goliaths, and not only was Cosmodore close friends with these fellow reviewers, he was also generally respected and welcomed into their community. The path seemed paved for Cosmodore's time on YouTube, a long and successful career. But unbeknownst to the public, there was a pothole forming behind the scenes, rooted deep in his own depravity. On December 11th, 2019, Cosmodore decided to tweet. In the tweet, Cosmodore confessed to the public that earlier on in the year, he had been dating someone who was 15 when he was 19. This was the first time people got a glimpse of the pothole, but it wasn't really clear. In fact, it was a rather deceiving first impression. It was a dark, gloomy atmosphere, covered in icing and self-pity. every single paragraph and reply he wrote was on his side. Cosmodore never received a photograph of the 15-year-old. Cosmodore never did anything remotely lewd to the 15-year-old. Cosmodore tried breaking up this relationship multiple times because he knew it was a bad idea. Pretty much all the information that was put out there about the situation was boosting Cosmo. That and the lack of information about the relationship in general was enough for people to let him off the hook. And once all was said and done, he deleted the tweet. So, Cosmodore made a big mistake, but is willing to take responsibility and move on. And then the general public forgets about it, and he continues on as normal for the rest of his career. That's what happened, right? On July 2020, Cosmodore would address the situation again, this time on a YouTube community post. In the post, he gives us a much more meticulous view of what exactly happened during this relationship, and he admits to certain things here that would have undoubtedly bit him in the ass sooner if he included it in his tweet. In the second and third paragraphs, Cosmodore writes about how he was an utter nightmare to deal with. He would often hang the weight of his own problems above the victim's head, who, may I remind you, is a child, and also admits to abruptly cutting off relationships with friends. He also admitted to trying to reach out to the kid after the relationship was cut off to apologize multiple times, and to sharing Rule 34 with them. Shortly afterwards, he would write a tweet longer in a much more self-deprecating tone, repeatedly insulting himself and basically going off on a tangent about how his life is falling apart because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return to the internet. These are the actions and ramblings of someone who is clearly not mentally stable, so you can imagine when people started shining a spotlight on this man's degeneracy, pretty much everyone in his circle stopped associating with him and called him out publicly on Twitter. Two particular individuals in the cartoon community, Alpha J Show and Trafon, both made tweetlongers documenting how Cosmodore had abused them, doing some really petty shit, and shit-talking them and other people behind their backs. Daft Pina would end up uploading his infamous video on the situation where he and Pondersprocker brought a lot of new points to the table, most notably being that they planned to meet up at a convention and that he pretty much cyberstalked the victim after the breakup. It's a must watch for anyone interested in the situation, and I highly recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. He would later comment on the video saying that he was in a friend group with people who are, there's no other way of saying this, pedophiles. Look at those age gaps. It's amazing how in just a couple of days, Cosmodore's reputation completely flipped on its head. He went from being one of the most respected content creators in the community to being known as a mentally unstable abuser. The piece of shit who plays a woe is me persona on the internet to save his ass from the horrors he had made people go through. There was no coming back from this, and eventually he vanished from cyberspace. But not before recording this.
Bro, I can record stories again. This is sick. Yo. Oh.
Here he is recording himself having some sort of manic episode. This footage is an ominous display of someone losing their fucking mind, and the only thing keeping him from going completely insane is his bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. Never mind the obvious statement that someone who is going for this should not be browsing for YouTube. We're only scratching the surface with that argument. By publishing himself going through this kind of shit, he is forcing his pain onto his subscribers, his audience of kids and young teens. Imagine hearing this sentence from your favorite YouTuber.
Oh, I'm not well. I'm really not. I'm fucking miserable.
You would probably be extremely distressed to say the least, and it's fucking gross that Cosmodore would cause other people's lives pain and misery just to salvage his own. Shortly after this though, Cosmodore would disappear. For about 2 months.
I don't know how long it'll last, but damn it, I'll give it the best I've got.
October 12, 2020. Cosmodore would upload, "Welcome to the NHK and the Necessity of Change," an analysis into an anime that covers topics such as depression, social isolation, and existential dread. He makes it clear throughout the video that this is a piece of work he holds dear to his heart, and he made multiple quips throughout the video referencing the fact that he related a lot to the main character.
Until 2 years later, and with every possible mistake I could have made in my time on YouTube crossed off the list, I can wholly identify with this loner character stuck in his room, without my life going anywhere, having pushed away the people closest to me. Hey!
It was a very emotionally charged video, more deep than any of his past uploads, but what caught the public eye the most was the disclaimer at the beginning, in which he talks about the situation yet again. At this point, the desperation has found its way onto his videos tab and still proudly oozes from his channel to this day. When this was found out by the public, people got so fucking mad that he actually had to take the video down and re-upload it without the disclaimer. Oh, I'm aware of the description. Don't think I don't see that, Cosmo. Sure. This video would mark Cosmodore's grand return to YouTube. Strap yourselves in, folks, because for this layer and the next layer, we will be discussing both of his responses on YouTube and why they're really fucking bad. Starting off with his first response.
This has been a long time coming.
A proper response was uploaded on December 8th, 2020. His first response in video form, if you don't count the stories, it was a video where he discussed the pedo accusations, again, while also acknowledging other controversies he was the target of, such as the abuse towards peers and the secret Discord server. Was this the salvation that Cosmodore was so desperately needing in order to get his career back on track? Absolutely not. The moment that people with actual power shined a spotlight at it, it got shat on, and currently sits at around 14,000 dislikes. But maybe, just maybe, people will overreact. No, this response was fucking awful, and all I want to do is lecture you on why it's so awful, by picking some of my favourite clips from the video in order. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the shite.
And also wasn't in the right mindset to where I could properly explain myself, so I chose to only come back once I felt as though I could show you meaningful progress and know that I wouldn't make the same mistakes again.
Alright, so you want to prove to people that you've changed the person. If you want to prove that you won't do anything like this again, then respect the victim's wishes and go offline. That's a starting point. Donating to sexual assault charities is noble as well, but just admit it, you're never really going to get your career off the ground at this point. Like it or not, you have committed actions that are both illegal and seen as heinous and unforgivable. This is the internet. No one here will let you forget the pain that you've caused.
This is going to be as detailed a summary of events as I can give you without roping in people who I know don't want to be associated with any of this. I would appreciate it if you don't go after anyone and respect the privacy of everyone involved.
Okay, so here's the thing, Cosmo. By responding to a situation that directly involves someone, you are inherently groping people in. There is no way you can physically talk about someone without making them involved in some way. And this is especially detrimental in this situation because the victim has already gone on record and said she wants you to go off the internet.
That's all I have to say. Go away, Cosmo. Bye.
And you are still talking about this and slightly tweaking the narrative because you still haven't got your way.
Back at the end of 2018, I met this person online who was unlike anyone I've ever met before. They spoke their mind like no one I knew in real life. They had amazing talents that I knew would get them far in life. They had a great sense of humor. The only problem was they were underage.
How did you think this was a good idea to record? Seriously, what was going through your head when you said that? You know what's the last thing you want to do when trying to respond to pedophile accusations? Make yourself look like a creep, and that's exactly what you're doing here, by complimenting and romanticizing your relationship with a 15-year-old who already had to deal with enough of your shit and finds it hard not to burst into tears thinking about what you have done. You just don't get it, don't you?
Because at that point I had already fallen for this person and tried really hard to be with them. I would go days without going online to somehow get them to notice me. I would ask around their friends if they felt about me the same way, and it worked. We started dating.
Holy fuck.
What I also take accountability for is that although I tried very hard to be with this person because I did care for them a lot, I was also very new to relationships and didn't always treat them the best.
But that's one way to put it. You know, as someone who's had to research the situation extensively for this video, one of the biggest shockers to me is just how much he tries to downplay the abuse and manipulation in his responses, in favour of the more audacious grooming accusations. Considering that he has already admitted to playing sick mind games in order to gain her attention, and that he traumatized the kid with his aggressive attitude, it's not a good look to consistently throw these details under the bus in order to look more sympathetic. It's pathetic.
I am not a child groomer, but I am a terrible person for the way I treated both of these people.
I agree. I probably should have stated this earlier, but I do not believe Cosmodore is a child groomer. While sending Rule 34 to the minor was incredibly irresponsible and shitty, this does not show that he had any sexual interest in the minor herself, and his actions, while they are horrendous, are not even close to other people's actions in the art community. For example, Tarhead, a 21-year-old who received nudes from a 15-year-old and threatened to save them for later. Let's be honest here, Daft Peanut isn't completely clean in this situation either. The way he handled things behind the scenes was questionable at best and downright malicious at worst. Pressuring someone who is clearly starstruck and confused as to what was going on to sending him unrelated screenshots of Cosmodore venting about his 20-year-old ex, or else he would say he was withholding evidence and helping him.
I responded asking such as, then I expressed to him how caught off guard I was and that I didn't know how to react right now. Daft then told me that he appreciated my interest, but if I didn't send him the screenshots, then I would be aiding Cosmo by withholding evidence. This is what messed with me, and that me not getting involved would help Cosmo. Upon talking some more to Daft about the goings on in the server and trying to explain that it was mostly events from Cosmo and that how I didn't see it was relevant to the video, he responded saying he didn't want to drag this on any longer. He thanked me for my time and told me to have a good day.
I'm sorry, but I cannot support that blatant misuse of power. And advertising the video like this wasn't the best look either. I mean, seriously, barfing emojis? Real professional there, Daft. I also like the fact how you're trying to hype up a video exposing someone who has apparently groomed someone as if you would a tracer. What the fuck? The back and forth of Rule 34 should have never been the main talking point in this drama, and the rampant grooming accusations gave Cosmodore a lot of room to weasel in his responses. I am far more concerned by his abusive behaviour, his rampant manipulation, and how he takes advantage of his audience.
I've tried multiple times to apologize to both of them, which only made matters worse because it started to veer off into stalking territory, which is equally horrible and a result of deep-rooted abandonment issues that I shouldn't have projected onto others like that. And I'm sorry.
Okay, here he apologizes for projecting his pain onto others. Remember this, as it will be important for the next layer. The rest of the video is just rambling on about other accusations that aren't as serious, but still fucked. But I would like to point out this.
Again, I wasn't aware this wasn't something I should be doing when I first sent Rule 34 to my ex, but by now I was so fed up with people calling me a child groomer that I almost sent this stuff out of spite.
Out of spite? You sent Rule 34 on a secret Discord server as someone who had previously sent Rule 34 to a minor out of spite. Oh dear. And I would also like to mention the end where he says he needs time to reflect on his actions before he returns. Well, I must say, if that's the case, then he must have the best fucking therapist of all time, as his next video would be released literally less than a month after the fact. So yeah, his response was pretty fucking bad, and it was clear as day that absolutely no one with any status cared about what he had to say. You'd think if Cosmodore was smart he would just leave the situation there and ignore it, but no, Cosmodore knows that people will never let the situation go as long as he is online, and since he is a manipulator, he will always want his way, no matter how much of his soul he sells to the devil, and this is only really exemplified by his most recent Wall of Defense.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
What I want
want to do here is set something straight, say my piece, and hopefully move on from this, because I feel like I've let this go on for long enough. For those who don't know, I've been accused of being a child groomer for being in a relationship with someone under the age of 18 when I was 19. I said before that I wouldn't talk about this again, and I really needed to take a step away from it all to fully realize how ridiculous everything is.
February 24th, 2021. After releasing 2 videos on New Year's, Cosmodore would issue out yet another response video, titled Defending Myself. This video was made solely for the purpose of trying to clear his name as hard as possible, specifically from the accusations of grooming. Much like the previous response, it used to have a strong like to dislike ratio before people with power found out about it and shat on him even harder, with Just Stop making a full-on video talking about it, and now sits at around 10,000 dislikes. I mean, surely he had to expect this kind of backlash by titling the video Defending Myself, which is a bit audacious since nearly everything he's been accused of he admitted to doing multiple times and apologized for. He even acknowledges this at the start of the video.
This is not an apology video because I feel like I've issued too many apologies here on YouTube and in private, and furthering that sort of discussion is just gonna make me seem insincere.
Also similarly to the previous situation, his actions suggest that he thought this video would be his saving grace, reactivating both his Twitter and Instagram. Keep in mind that the victim of the situation had responded to Cosmo's original video at this point, making these actions 10 times more insolent. But surely, if he's being this bold about a situation that he himself lighted up, then surely he'd have something to say, right? Well, let's find out together if this response was truly a mastercraft.
It's not my viewers' place to accept any apology I make. That's entirely on the people I negatively impacted, and they already said that they don't want an apology from me, but for me to be out of their lives entirely.
So they want you to be out of their lives entirely. Then why on God's earth are you making this video? You are once again talking about the situation that causes them PTSD, and you could have not known this since you linked the victim's video in the description of your previous one. You know, the video that literally has a disclaimer at the very beginning of the video that apologized for stuttering and pausing because she found it hard not to burst into tears talking about you? Let's be honest, the only reason why you're trying is because you think you have the power to pick yourself back up, which you quite evidently don't.
For those who don't know, I've been accused of being a child groomer for being in a relationship with someone under the age of 18 when I was 19. I said before that I wouldn't talk about this again, and I really wish I could have been true to my word on that, but the rumors just keep on piling up, and I still get death threats for something I wish I could have been able to put behind me.
Okay, so here's the thing with death threats, Cosmo. Death threats are made by random strangers on the internet, and you can easily just ignore them by going off social media. This is my point here. By not leaving and trying to better yourself, you are not only angering your offense, but you're also alienating your defense, who just want to see you get better. And also, this is inherently less bad than you being harsh on the victim, because not only was she a minor, but you weren't just some rando on the internet. You were a god in her eyes, and for her savior to treat her like shit is way more fucked up than what you are experiencing. For his first defense, he tries using the classic age of consent laws to excuse himself of any legal trouble. There's not much I can say here that wasn't already stated in Just Stop's video on him, so I'll keep it brief. His arguments are incredibly weak, and it doesn't help that literally right after using cultural differences as a point, he says he was aware American laws are different.
Now, because I knew American sensibilities are a little different, I did try to keep my relationship a secret because I really didn't want people accusing me of being a pedophile, but that is exactly what happened.
I don't know why he even bothered trying to justify it, considering he said this in his last response.
Now for context, the age of consent where I live is 14. I brought this up before in a now deleted video, and I said before that this is something I disagree with, but it is true.
It's almost as if he's slightly tweaking his story each time to see what sticks. He's made it quite clear from the beginning that he will only want to let go once his image is as squeaky clean as possible.
I never exchanged nudes with anyone.
No one said you did?
I never had any sexual conversation besides weird Rule 34 shit you can find on most every Twitter timeline.
Ah yes, because the content on most every Twitter timeline requires you to inquire about the victim's tolerance level.
I never met up with my partner.
Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously, Fuck you! That is just the biggest middle finger to anyone who has done the slightest bit of research on the situation. No, you may have not actually met up with the minor, but you certainly wanted to, and was going to for the longest time. What are you saying?
Literally nothing happened, and I'm still being called a danger to kids, or that I'm trying to lure in fans by making cartoon videos, which I'm pretty sure only stems from the belief that just because I make videos on animation, that means all my fans are underage, when you can simply look at my analytics and realize that is not the case.
You're using Google Analytics. You are seriously using Google Analytics in an age where tons of children flagrantly lie about their age to get access to more adult content. You are using Google Analytics. It's not like it's even good evidence in the first place though. I mean, if 11-year-old me was well aware of your content, then surely that implies that there were more people in the same boat as me, but I digress. The next defense is regarding his status as a groomer, and I agree with him on that point. What I would like to talk about is how he described the back and forth of Rule 34. I don't like how he acts like he had less responsibility in the situation than he did. He was the adult, whether you like it or not, and as someone who is known in Discord servers for involving himself in the latest dramas, you'd think he would be a bit more careful as the adult with the bigger following. Not a teenager like he'd have you believe.
I'm still being called a pedophile for it over something I did when I was a teenager.
Also, that comparison?
They themselves had an NSFW Twitter account at the time, which led me to believe they were overage. And even they themselves said the images they shared were nothing more than a joke to them.
Not even fucking close.
And frankly, it's a bit narrow-minded to disregard other countries' cultures just because that's not how you grew up and came to see the world.
Isn't that literally what you did by dating a minor of a different culture, yet never decided to respect her comeuppance where a relationship like that is frowned upon? Jeez, seems a bit narrow-minded if I do say so myself. After this we got the obligatory plea of guilt to things I already admitted to doing, but of course, leave it up to Cosmo to make it sound creepy as shit.
Their age was a concern for me at first, but I genuinely thought it would work itself out once they turn 18.
What the fuck, man? After that, he'd then go on about how he didn't groom LS Mark, which fucking obviously, holy shit. I don't even think I need to explain why that's dumb as fuck. He literally just said he had feelings for the guy, and the worst part about all this is that Cosmodore somehow managed to fuck his defense up by saying he's completely within his rights to sue Daft, which is inherently false, considering he has admitted to pretty much everything Daft said about him except grooming. And this leads up to his overuse of the victim card. This is his video's most glaring problem, as Cosmodore tries to over-exaggerate the most minuscule things to try and paint himself as a poor soul. We saw it with the death threats, and now we're seeing it with him trying to paint people making videos on him in a negative light. You see, these people don't care about the victim, they just care about calling me labels. Look at these examples of factually wrong statements by people who are considered pillars of wisdom, like Prismmate Luke, and some random motherfucker using GTA gameplay. These people are well and truly on top of the world. I also love how he uses this screenshot from Dumbsville's Alpha and Omega video, like it's clearly not a fucking joke. To use these examples, I see as him maliciously trying to discredit his critics by nitpicking, and trying to guilt trip these people by going off on a tangent about your suffering.
So this whole narrative that these commentary channels are spreading that I'm some kind of predator because I wasn't a good partner is really fucking disgusting. I was suicidal, it's put me in a mental hospital.
It's abysmal. And not only does he do that, but he also says that the only reason people won't associate with him anymore is because they want to protect their image.
And every single person I've ever known on this platform has turned on me. And that's not because they don't agree with my actions or genuinely think I'm the things I'm being accused of, but because they want to protect their precious brands and know that if I genuinely tried to groom someone, it wouldn't look good on them if they were to keep associating with me.
Because it couldn't possibly be, because your actions made them not want to associate with you anymore. Wow. You sound like a great friend, Cosmo. The next 10 minutes are nothing really special. He calls people wanting him to leave the internet for its well-being cancel culture. He makes himself out to be a victim more. He yaps on about how he's a changed man from his past self, which makes no sense considering he's still trying to contact people who do not want anything to do with him. And he talks about
hurt people anymore. I want to make fun content for people because that's what I'm passionate about. Not doing so has made me more depressed than I already was.
Come with me.
Leave the internet is not as blank of a statement as you may think, but at the same time, it totally is. I mean, what else can you get from leave the internet other than leave the internet? To answer that question, I'll have to say not much, but at the same time, it can be everything. During lockdown, my anxiety was at a peak after one night where I had a major anxiety attack which made me think I was going to faint. I tried everything to get an answer. I got my blood tested for anemia, twice. I started freaking out more and questioning if my brain was even functioning correctly. One of my biggest character flaws is that I think too much and hold on to things for too long. I'll shout my way into the void sometimes just cause I feel like it. Even stupid jokes can sometimes stick in my head for way longer than necessary. I know this sounds sad coming from a commentator, and it is very sad, but I try my very best to keep it in amongst peers, and I would never, in my life, blame them for my own problems. In the event that an anxiety attack did happen to me, you know what was the first thing I would do? Switch on electronics and scroll through social media. It was a good distraction and it made me feel just that bit better about myself. The reason why I'm saying all this is because I believe you and me are both on the same boat. We both use social media to get a dopamine rush while in deep pain. This is a problem. While you may feel as if social media relieves you of your anxiety, it can just as easily cause anxiety. Every single day, tons of paranoia is spread across the internet with the sole purpose to scare you. If you let things linger in your headspace like I do, you'll start to get even more anxiety from the same form of escapism that you use to avoid it. And this especially applies to you, Cosmo. Let's just say, no one will fucking care if a murderer gets a broken arm. You are a child abuser. You cannot deny that. And you are only adding fuel to the fire by opening DMs, consistently using social media, and bringing up the situation time and time again on both your YouTube and your Twitter. At this point, you're asking for trouble. Don't try to hide either, because trust me, your cheeto-stained fingerprints will always be traced. So yeah, please do leave the internet. Nobody wants to see you, but everyone wants to see you change. No one's trying to stop you from living a happy, peaceful life outside of the internet and reflecting on your actions. These are things that you should be hearing from your therapist, and the fact that they still encourage you to continue making content either shows complete incompetence from the therapist in question, or you told them a different story. I think the latter is more credible than the other, as I think you will try anything in your power to justify your presence on the internet. You may feel as if leaving the internet will only make things worse, but trust me, you will feel a hell of a lot better about yourself if you just take deep breaths and have a moment. You are a man corrupted by your own desperation and delusion, and you are clearly very mentally ill. Go offline, and I hope that someday, just maybe, you'll find someone you can trust enough to talk to.
Oh, I just want someone to talk to. I don't trust my therapist. I don't trust anyone.